All right, let's dive straight into this explainer. We hear terms like the cloud or Wi-Fi literally every single day, right? And it makes it so easy to just picture all our data sort of floating effortlessly up there in some wireless sky. But the reality of how we actually connect, how we communicate, and honestly, how our entire global economy functions is completely different. It is heavily physical, it is deep underwater, and it is way, way more fragile than you might think.
Think about this for a second. Every time you make a lightning-fast UPI payment or hop on an international Zoom call for work, that data isn't bouncing off satellites in space. It's actually sprinting along the ocean floor. Seriously. The vast, vast majority of the entire world's internet travels through physical cables laid across the dark, crushing depths of the ocean. So, yeah, your cloud isn't up in the sky at all. It is quite literally under the sea.
Part 1. India's Internet Choke Point. Okay, to really grasp this vulnerability, we need to look at a tiny, seemingly totally normal 6-kilometer patch of sand in Mumbai called Versova Beach. Now, keeping that beach in mind, look at this number, 15. Out of India's 17 total undersea internet cable systems, the literal digital lifelines connecting the entire country to the global economy, 15 of them land right here at this one single beach. The digital pulse of 1.4 billion people is concentrated in a space you could walk across in an hour. And the crazy thing? It wasn't planned this way for national security. It just kind of happened because the commercial infrastructure was already there, making it cheaper and faster for companies to hook up new cables. And the hidden danger of that sheer convenience is, well, it's staggering. On the surface, it just looks like a normal beach. People walking, kids playing. But beneath the surface, it's a massive geopolitical target. This is especially alarming when you consider that China very recently tested a specialized deep-sea cable cutter. We're talking about a machine with diamond-coated blades spinning at 1,600 RPM, successfully tested at a crushing depth of 4,000 meters. Its explicit purpose? To sever these thick, expensive internet wires. It is literally a machine built to potentially reset global power dynamics in a matter of seconds. Moving on to part 2, the undersea truth. So how exactly does this physical tech actually work? Honestly, it's absolutely mind-blowing when you realize what's carrying our data. These deep ocean cables, they aren't these massive, impenetrable metal pipelines. Actually, they're only about 2 centimeters thick. Seriously, picture a standard garden hose that is the exact size we're talking about. And inside that hose, there are only about 32 to 48 pure glass fibers. And I don't mean window glass. It's the absolute purest form of glass known to humanity. If the ocean were made of this stuff, you could look from the surface straight down to the bottom, clear as day. Millions of video calls, massive financial transactions, all flowing through these tiny, fragile threads at the exact same time. So how does a simple, say, good morning text message actually travel through that? Well, it's not electricity zipping through copper wire. First, your message gets converted into zeros and ones. Then those digits are encoded into distinct patterns of light. Finally, that light travels via the ocean floor. We are literally manipulating the brightness, the timing, the frequency, and the wavelength of light pulses and bouncing them through 1.4 million kilometers of underwater glass. It is, quite literally, light illuminating the darkest depths of the ocean. But here is a huge question. Who actually owns this glass? Well, let's take a look at the 2 Africa cable. This thing is a staggering 45,000 kilometers long. Just to put that into perspective, that is actually longer than the entire circumference of the Earth. But look at who owns it. Meta, Vodafone, Orange, and China Mobile. You've got intense geopolitical rivals, American big tech and China's state telecom, acting as partners here. Why on earth would they do that? Because they know, without a doubt, that controlling these essential routes is absolutely worth collaborating with your biggest rival for. Which brings us to part 3. Real power is in routes. This whole dynamic stems from a historical truth that has dictated world power for centuries, and it goes like this. Those who own the routes own the future. Look back at the 1600s. The East India Company didn't just trade goods, they controlled the physical shipping routes, which is exactly what led to their colonial dominance. Fast forward a bit to 1858, and the British start dominating ocean telegraph wires, eventually running a massive global network. And then in 1914, right as World War I kicked off, what was Britain's very first move? They cut Germany's underwater telegraph cables. By forcing German communications onto routes the British controlled, they could intercept absolutely everything.
Controlling the flow of information essentially guarantees survival and dominance. Part 4. Data, behavior, and control.
Now, in the modern era, we've obviously moved way beyond just intercepting military telegrams. Modern road owners don't just want to read your messages anymore, they kind of want to read your mind. Remember the Cambridge Analytica scandal? 87 million profiles were harvested to create deep, incredibly accurate psychological profiles of people entirely without their consent. Research even showed that with just 300 Facebook likes, an algorithm can predict your personality with more accuracy than your own spouse could. No joke. They are using the mountains of data flowing through these cables to map out the psychology of entire nations. So the ultimate goal has completely shifted from simply intercepting data to predicting behavior. Through covert government and corporate partnerships like, the NSA's PRISM program, which at one point scooped up a staggering 91% of collected internet data, modern superpowers are monitoring behavior patterns. Tech giants and governments trade this data and support each other covertly. Their aim? To set the priority access, the speed, and the cost of information itself. They don't just want to predict the future. They want the power to actively shape it, just by manipulating the very streams of information we all rely on. Let's look at Part 5, Geo's Power Pyramid. To truly understand how owning these routes translates to absolute, unquestionable market control, let's look at a pretty fascinating case study right here in India, starting back around 2016. It is basically a power pyramid. It all starts at level 1, the route. Instead of just renting existing lines, Geo decided to build thousands of kilometers of their own proprietary fiber networks. And because they own that route, they unlock level 2, signal. They could see the actual economics and the massive potential of data incredibly clearly. That insight led straight to level 3, decisions. While all their competitors were totally focused on charging for voice calls, Geo realized data was the true future and made voice calls completely free. Just a brilliant, brilliant move. This pushed them right up to level 4, position. They absolutely crushed rivals who were just tenants, stuck paying rent for those old lines, and finally, this all compounded into level 5, control. We're talking over 400 million users and massive investments from global tech giants. By choosing to build their own routes instead of renting, they built an unstoppable control flywheel. But that brings us to Part 6, India's 3 big weaknesses. See, while that strategic game was won locally, on land, the international waters exposed some really massive blind spots for India. Gap number 1 is ownership. Look at these numbers. Despite India generating a whopping 20% of global internet traffic, our global cable footprint, meaning the physical cables we actually own a stake in, is a measly 2%. And our data center ownership, that sits at just 3%. So we are generating a massive chunk of the world's digital lifeblood, yet we own practically none of the actual infrastructure carrying it. To put it bluntly, we are the world's most beautiful and most vulnerable tenant. Then we have gap number 2, the extreme danger of choke points. Actual route owners can intentionally lay down new cables to just bypass global conflict zones entirely. Like, Meta's new cables are specifically designed to steer clear of the Red Sea. But route tenants, like India, we don't get that luxury. A staggering 60% of India's internet traffic is forced straight through highly volatile corridors like the Red Sea, an area where, right now, missiles are flying and underwater cables are actively being cut. We are completely at the mercy of geography that someone else chose for us. And finally, we hit gap number 3. Honestly, this is the most brutal reality of all, the repair gap. If a cable gets cut in a crisis, the injury takes mere seconds to happen. But the treatment? Because we don't own the specialized repair fleets, it takes roughly 3 to 5 months of waiting around for foreign ships and international legal clearances just to fix it. The surgeon is rented. Think about that. In a time of war or a major geopolitical crisis, waiting months to restore your country's digital nervous system is a catastrophic weakness. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to really chew on. Are we just building apps to live in someone else's dream? I mean, we boast all the time about having this booming app economy and massive digital adoption. But at the end of the day, building apps is really just decorating the inside of a rented house. Shouldn't we be prioritizing and securing that concrete foundation beneath the sea first? Because historically, and absolutely still today, the one who controls the physical path of information controls reality itself.